Epic Universe may have just had its first major fumble since the park was first announced. Hello everybody, welcome. The excitement and hype for this park couldn't be higher. But as previews have started and we learn more about this park, have we all been setting our expectations just a little bit too high? Epic Universe previews are officially underway, and we are getting some amazing reviews of this new park, including rave reviews for Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein experiment in Dark Universe. This is clearly shaping up to be the standout attraction in all of Epic Universe. And this is the attraction that everybody is saying is going to blow you away. So clearly the standout attraction so far. You may be saying, what do you mean by so far? Well, let's talk about it. During the previews, team members have had access to different areas of the park and certain attractions, but not all of the areas and attractions at once. In fact, one major attraction hasn't been able to be experienced at all. This leads us to the first big issue that Epic Universe seems to be experiencing. And that is the battle at the Ministry in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts. This ride has not been open and available to team members. Nobody has gotten to experience this brand new attraction. Now, we do know some people have experienced this prior to the previews, but as of the team member previews that have started, nobody has gotten to experience this attraction. They have been able to walk around and visit and look at all of the Wizarding World areas, but this particular attraction, Battle at the Ministry, has not been available. Rumor has it that this attraction is supposed to have 10 vehicles running at any given time, and so far they've only been able to have 4 of these vehicles running. And given that the previews are happening and still no one has been able to experience this attraction, a lot of people are talking about Monsters Unchained, because that has been available and apparently it is absolutely spectacular. But the other big marquee ride that we are all expecting to be really cool is this Battle at the Ministry attraction. Since nobody's been able to ride it, we don't know if it's better or worse than Monsters Unchained. So all we're hearing about is monsters. But this begs the question, if they're still having this many issues during previews to where no one's been able to even experience the attraction. This isn't like people were able to get on it and then there have been issues and they've had to shut it down and they've tried and it just hasn't worked. Nobody's been able to do it at all, which has people talking about, is Epic Universe going to be ready by May 22nd? Universal has had a history of opening before it's ready. Over the past decades, Islands of Adventure, Universal Studios, new attractions, new lands, new areas have been plagued with lots of problems, and people have complained that Universal opens too early before things are ready. Now, I will say contrast that with Disney, who takes a really long time to open and then still has problems with their attractions. At least Universal opens early and then has problems with their attractions. So Disney is sort of like a double whammy. You took forever to actually open this thing, and now that it's open, it's still busted and doesn't work. Hello, Tiana's Bayou. But Universal tends to open early and then still have lots of issues. A good example of this is the Gringotts attraction in the Diagon Alley. When that opened, we were there for opening day. And I'm going to tell you right now, we waited 7 hours for Gringotts. That is not an exaggerated number. This thing was a disaster on opening day. It was so bad that they were giving out free snacks and water in the line to people waiting. Theme parks don't do that. Disney doesn't do that. Universal doesn't do that. They don't just hand out food and drinks for free unless there is a really big reason to do so. And 7-hour wait for Gringotts is definitely a reason to do that. And it wasn't because there were that many people trying to experience the attraction. I mean, there was a lot of people, but it wasn't 7 hours worth of people. The reason that it had problems is because they weren't able to keep the attraction running. They weren't able to run it at full capacity. One of the entire loading sides was completely down, and it never did reach the number of vehicles on the coaster that it was supposed to be running. So it had less cars on the track able to move, one side completely shut down, and it was opening day. So a perfect example of opening before it was ready. And the fact that Battle with the Ministry has not been running yet, hopefully it does start to run this week and people are able to start experiencing it, but so far it hasn't been happening. But this is a little bit worrying in that, is it going to open? Will Epic Universe open with too many issues and major problems? Is it going to open before it's ready? So we'll have to wait and see. But there is another big issue happening at Epic Universe that has to do with Stardust Racers. Now, we reported a few weeks back about the addition of some trim brakes on that big massive hill at the top hat there. Pictures by BioReconstruct have sort of showed that there are these new trim brakes that have been added on that downhill portion. Now, speculation is that there has been an issue with this particular part of the track where the negative G-forces of going down the hill converting to positive G-forces going up the hill have been too hard, too strong. And there are safety standards in place for roller coasters that require there to be a certain amount of time that passes between that transition of negative to positive G-forces, and Stardust Racers was not meeting those standards. So the speculation is that the trim brakes were added to slow those vehicles down just slightly to allow for more time in that transition. Now, this really sent people over the edge when they heard and saw these trim brakes, and they were saying, here we go again. This is a ruined experience. You're killing the roller coaster. There's this feeling, this thought out in the roller coaster enthusiast community that if you have to add trim brakes, it just completely wrecks the experience. The reality, however, of that is that trim brakes get added on a lot of different coasters all the time, and it doesn't really negatively impact the coaster. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But it does point to the fact that there could be an issue with this attraction. Usually you design the roller coaster so it doesn't have to have trim brakes installed. So this has been worrisome for people for quite a while because it could negatively impact the coaster. And we now have new information that looks like it is negatively impacting the coaster. We have new imagery that shows that Stardust Racers has been stuck. It was basically valleyed in between that downhill and that uphill portion. So when a ride vehicle essentially valleys or craters there between a downhill and an uphill of some kind, typically what valleying means is that the ride vehicle didn't have enough momentum or speed to carry it through the next ride element, such as a hill or a loop of some kind. And the problem with this is that the only way to really resolve that issue when a valleying happens is you have to shut down the attraction basically for the rest of the day, and then that evening pull a crane in to sort of attach to that coaster and pull the vehicle up around that next hill to get that train unstuck. This is not something you normally would see during operating hours of a theme park. So that attraction will be shut down until a crane can be brought in to pull it out. As you can imagine, this is a big deal. Now, of course, Stardust Racers does have 2 tracks, which means it's possible even if one of them valleys, they can continue to operate the ride on 50% capacity. However, I will say the issue that caused the first car to valley could very well happen to the other car as well at some point in that day if there is a major issue here. Is it possible this is a fluke? Maybe, but I don't think it is. Probably not. And what's very concerning here is this is very reminiscent of another attraction at Universal called Rip Ride Rockit. If you don't know much about the history of Rip Ride Rockit, obviously we know this attraction is being shuttered and replaced. Why is that happening? It's still a very popular ride. Why are they getting rid of Rip Ride Rockit? I covered this in another video, but I want to talk a little bit about it here so you can get an indication of the ramifications of what's going on with Stardust Racers. Rip Ride Rockit opened in 2009. It's not that old of a roller coaster. As I said, it's still very popular, still has kind of a long wait for it. A lot of people enjoy the ride. However, since opening day for Rip Ride Rockit, it has had a myriad of problems. Originally, it was designed to operate with 7 trains running on that track at any given point, and for the most part, it's really only ever gotten to 4 or 5. In addition, the ride was very rough from day one. And this is because of the design of the ride vehicles themselves and the weight of these vehicles. And what's concerning is that Stardust Racers has reportedly also has a loud shake to it, sort of a loud vibration and shaking to it, which is fairly unusual for a brand new attraction. Velocicoaster also has a shaking issue. You can hear vibrations in the ride vehicle. As time has gone by, that shaking has gotten louder and more pronounced. But when Velocicoaster first opened, it didn't really have much shaking at all. And so what's interesting here is that Stardust Racers, brand new, not even opened yet, and it's already having these loud vibrations and noises, which is a little bit concerning. In addition, Rip Ride Rockit was also located basically in a wind tunnel between a bunch of buildings, and so a lot of wind would cause this attraction to have problems. They'd get velocity issues, and it would valley quite frequently. In addition, guests were getting injured at the top of the first hill, so they had to slow the lift down in the beginning, which led to more valleying issues on this attraction. And so it just had a lot of problems with valleying, again, shaking on the coasters. And eventually, after years and years, I mean, they put so much money into this attraction. Allegedly, they put so much money into Rip Ride Rockit to keep it operating and to make it as best as they could, despite its engineering issues, that they spent 6 times the amount of money maintaining it than it cost to build it. So this is not good news at all for Stardust Racers. This could be a big issue, because here's what it comes down to. If Stardust Racers does have this issue and it can't be figured out and they can't find a way to resolve it fairly easily, it is quite possible that we're going to have the same issue with Stardust Racers as we have with Rip Ride Rockit, which is that it can only operate in weather that is of a certain temperature and of certain wind speeds. If the wind speed is too high, Stardust Racers could shut down. If it's a little bit too cold outside, Stardust Racers could shut down. That's the issue with Rip Ride Rockit. If you've never paid attention, Rip Ride Rockit is down all the time. There's a slight breeze in the air, Rip Ride Rockit's down. You don't know why. You think it's because they're having technical issues. No, it's down because there's too much wind. If there's a little chill in the air, Rip Ride Rockit is down. So this is not good news at all for Stardust Racers. It eventually led to the shuttering and tearing down of Rip Ride Rockit for something else. So to have an attraction that might have some issues right out of the gate again at Universal, this is very concerning. Now, this all could just be nothing. They might be able to figure out an easy way to solve it, no big deal, so there's no reason to panic. I mean, the park's not even open yet. They got plenty of time to figure this stuff out and fix it, but it does point to the fact that there could be an issue that could be systemic and something that lasts quite a while and cause them a lot of problems. And there's only one real big heavy coaster in that park. Obviously the How to Train Your Dragon Land has one as well, but that's sort of much more of a relaxed, friendly attraction. But this is really their big ticket coaster in the park. And if it has problems staying open because of wind speeds, or like a little cold snap that happens, or one of the trains happens to valley because there's a weight issue of some kind on the train, this could be a big problem. But hey, again, it's just previews, hasn't even opened yet, they got time. Let me know what you think. Are you concerned about it? Do you think it's going to detract from the experience? I will say, people who have ridden Stardust Racers say it's absolutely fantastic and probably one of the best coasters they've ever been on. Some people are even saying they believe it's better than Velocicoaster. I'm not sure about that. Velocicoaster is amazing, so I'm going to be surprised. I do know it has some elements that I think are just really wow. There's a particular section where the two cars that are going with each other sort of like envelop each other almost and wrap around, and it almost feels like you can reach your hands out and touch other people's hands and the car going by you. I mean, it sounds absolutely amazing, but depending on the changes they have to make to fix these problems, could detract from it, but as is, it's supposed to be a fantastic coaster. So I'd love to hear what you think about it in the comments. Anything I missed there, any concerns that you have, is there an easy way to fix it that you're aware of? Hit me in the comments, would love to hear from you. But overall, Epic Universe is on track to be fantastic. Can't wait to experience it. But it does seem like they've had a couple of fumbles here during previews, which is to be expected. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share to this content. Share it with all your friends. Once again, thanks for watching, and until we see you next time, the no way is the easy way. Bye-bye, everybody.